I think I've read the same paragraph 4 times without absorbing a thing. How the heck do people read? Welcome to the Rhythms of Focus podcast for wandering minds who are tired of feeling that they have to force themselves to make things happen. Maybe know that when things line up well, that tendency to wander actually becomes a powerful wave of focus. I'm Dr. Kourosh Dini, fellow wandering mind. It wasn't that long ago that I struggled to make things happen, whether it was to remember when to pay a bill, do things over time, or look at a list without feeling repulsed. Fast forward through years of study and practice, I can now not only deal with the world, I can be creative, playful, and engage in the ways that make sense to me. I can be a doctor, musician, father, still play games in the evenings. I've created this podcast to share these ideas so you can do the same. Hopefully with a lot less of the troubles I needed to go through to get here. Whether you have ADHD, deal with anxiety, or just suffer from a powerfully creative spirit, I invite you to join me in this weekly podcast to start finding your own way to a calmer, more intuitive space. Please note, I'm not functioning as your doctor, psychiatrist, psychoanalyst, therapist, or otherwise. This is here for education, if not entertainment, and I do hope you enjoy it. For some wandering minds, reading a book is about as difficult as climbing a mountain. Mountaineers notwithstanding. Getting to the book at all is one hurdle, and staying with the book is yet another. We might blame that wandering mind, this sense, I just can't focus. Or maybe I'm not a visual learner. Well, either might be true. Interestingly, though, I've met quite a number of those with wandering minds who find reading delightful. This ready-made path easily followed without needing to hold back. The guardrails of the words in the passage lead them along this gripping story. Now, sometimes they might fall into other troubles like an attention tunnel, hyper-focus it's hard to break out of. While the troubles of being in flow are certainly important and worthy of attention, I want to focus today on the other side of matters, which is getting into the book. There's a sense of deadness, the words, the boredom. We could argue that sometimes a book just isn't very engaging. It's the book's fault, not mine. Yeah, certainly that can be the case too. But I would just say, okay, well, find another. And then you're saying, I'm assigned this one. Well, okay, I give up. Let's see what we can do anyway. There are any number of approaches we can take. In a recent episode, I described being on a plane with a book. Without Wi-Fi, we're able to allow our mind to wander about. As opposed to having the internet, hobbies, or other infinite gravity pools pulling, we have the singular path forward for our attention. Cracking open the book, we can weave back and forth between being and engaging, a word here, a sentence there, and sometimes we can even dive deep pretty quickly. But sometimes, if you're like me, you might just fall asleep. Sometimes I'll even go through waves of falling asleep. Open the book, read another sentence, and I'm out again. But after a while, sometimes something clicks, and I'm off and running. My own psychoanalyst years ago would describe his own process of reading, and he said one of 3 things would happen. 1, he'd fall asleep. 2, he'd start editing the paper. Or 3, he'd start writing a new paper altogether. Funny enough, he left out reading the paper itself. As we read, I think there's a formatting stage that isn't often discussed. Especially when we're first starting a book, new concepts are coming to mind. For them to make any sense, we need to reflect on them between what we know, what we don't know, as well as connect things together. When our minds have this tendency to wander, the initial sensation of discovering difference and discrepancies isn't always about wonder. Sometimes that would otherwise draw us in. Instead, it's about confusion. And because the birth of confusion is often unconscious, we don't recognize what caused it. Confusion appears when something doesn't make sense. Usually 2 or more things somehow don't connect. Maybe this sentence and that don't seem to have anything to do with each other, and we just went by, not realizing it. Maybe an idea just appearing seems to conflict with something only vaguely remembered from this last page, last paragraph, last chapter. Or maybe the words stir a set of associations, some thoughts, some daydream. Something gets touched off within a recollection, a moment of sadness, joy, shame, excitement. The grocery item you just forgot. Another matter of confusion is how large of a cloud it can create within our minds, blocking out our working and short-term memories. Working memory is that part of us that's engaged in this moment. It's the central fovea in the lens of consciousness. Short-term memory is about the small handful of ideas bouncing in and out of that center. It's that peripheral vision flowing from, into, the lens of consciousness. Together, these create the now. And when confusion appears, it can be this large billowing fog, obstructing much of whatever it is that we would see, dragging us off into one thought after the next, emotional waves pulling this way and that, mostly unconsciously, until hopefully we can find some clearer skies. We daydream. Read the same sentence, the same paragraph, over and over. Sometimes we don't even do that, and instead fall asleep. The wandering mind, myopic and magnified as it is in its views of the now, are particularly susceptible to emotions, huge and swallowing as they can be. So how do we regain ourselves? How do we engage and feel alive again? We often hear this importance of being active in our reading. But what does that even mean? My analyst mentioned either editing or writing, and I agree that these are useful. But sometimes we still need to read that thing, don't we? We can use these feelings, exhaustion, confusion, and the like, to recognize that something somewhere has a disconnect. I like to use the question, what does this have to do with that? We identify one sentence, one idea, wherever my mind went perhaps, with something else, perhaps what I just read. Sometimes I discover a connection, and when I do, I'm often feeling alive again. And sometimes I don't, but having asked the question itself somehow helps contain that confusion. In those times that I've particularly been able to engage, I pause and wonder to myself, what do I know? What do I think about this? What do I not know? In this way, the initial stage is not active in some physical sense. In fact, I go in the opposite direction. I pause. I stop reading. I ground myself with what I know. And now when I go back, I can argue. I can say, wait a second, that doesn't make sense. Oh, wait, I agree with that, but your foundation is wrong. But I like your conclusion. Maybe I'll even start to write. Whatever the case, I'm alive. Now, of course, even this is not foolproof. Sometimes I still fall asleep. I have this theory that as I sleep, my brain is formatting itself. I'm consolidating whatever I'm reading. I know it's more than a theory. There's science to say sleep is good for you and your ability to remember, but I think it goes beyond that. It's this consolidation. It's this bringing together of worlds of thought and idea between myself and another person. And the deeper the resonance into the unconscious worlds, the greater the mysteries of sleep are ready to do their work. Or I just ate a turkey sandwich. Today's piece of music is an older piece. I think I wrote it some 20 years ago or so, and as with all my pieces of that age, they tend to evolve. I need to be alive in the performance. If I'm fading out, I think you can hear it in the notes. But it's the life of a piece and the performer that resonates with an audience. Same thing happens as we read. It's that resonance with the author. The following piece is in F minor. It's called A Light, and I hope you enjoy it. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, kindly subscribe, rate, review with whatever app you're using. If you're on the Apples, press the Apple buttons. If you're on the Spotifys, press the spots. If you're on the YouTubes, press those things, whatever the things. And if you're feeling especially generous, consider leaving a review. Maybe mention your favorite piano piece or just say hi. Your support helps more wandering minds find this podcast.